Anderson's salary that's paid completely out of the retirement system. The investment in terms of the actual physical structure of the retirement system, again, is an investment of the retirement system. But as council can allude to, and it's too much for today, there are some aspects of the retirement system in the county that are shared governance. One of the reasons we have this ad hoc committee is it was something actually that this body in essence already supported, and that was when we had this, what was called the separation and the independence of the retirement system, which is in some sense a misnomer because it didn't really change all that much. It changed a few things, but not other things. They're all in the government code, and council can tell us what they are. But it was the recommendation of the person we had to help with this independence option that we create. And an ad hoc committee only meets as an as-needed basis, and so I don't think it's necessarily going to be a regularly functioning committee. It might be for a period of time, it might not. But it was recommended that we do this so we don't have a gap in terms of the two bodies that do have to confer and share some responsibilities with respect to the benefits for current county employees, all those already retired, and so forth. So I think it's a good idea that we have this committee in place. It'll only meet as an as-needed basis. So I would hope that there'd be another volunteer of the Board of Supervisors that would be willing to sit on this. And I think it's important that we have this communication because there are some very difficult financial issues that we're going to have to be grappling with. The committee will report back to this body. We have moved forward with the structure saying, yes, we need more information for the things that we do govern here, getting very clear on what those are, bringing that information to this body. We're going to have the joint meeting of the retirement system and this body in the first half of this year. So I think we're on the right path, and I think I support the action. I think there are some things out there that are not well understood, such as who really pays for the retirement salaries and so forth. But there are some shared governance things that are really important, and I think it's an important ad hoc committee that we need to have.
Supervisor McKenna.
Well, I do support that. I would broaden the scope of it, but I'm happy to accept the scope as proposed. And I'd be willing to serve along with Supervisor Smith, who of course is the logical person to be on this committee. And I'd be happy to divorce ourselves from the responsibility for the system if we could divorce ourselves from the liability for it. But we're stuck with the liability, and there's no single issue that threatens to sink the county deeper than the issue of the retirement system and the healthcare system. And so I think we need to take every avenue that we have to understand it and hopefully to be able to manage it to where it doesn't become a huge ongoing liability for the county.
Right.
Yeah. I am just, everything Supervisor Smith and Dawn just stated, I agree with, except for the bottom line. Therefore, we need a committee. Therefore, we need to invest ourselves. We need to invest the time and effort of 2 board members. And I'm glad, now I'm, God bless you. But my son. But the other side of it is, that whether or not we have the capability, the competence on this board to address these issues collectively when we have another board out there that is addressing those issues for better or for worse. And I use it for better or for worse. Okay, and while I might have ultimate, the highest regard for the expertise or the knowledge the 2 of you would be generating, are you going to be playing buffer? Are you going to be playing the explainer, the decider? What's the role? Okay, are you the go-to people when it comes to these joint efforts? Because I do not get the impression right now that some members of that board understand the seriousness of the situation, do not understand the economics of the situation, do not have a grasp of what needs to be done, and do not understand their basic functions and their basic responsibility. It may be all good people. But the fact of the matter is, you put your finger on it, this is a huge liability, and the response that I have seen from some distance is such that if we put a couple of board members on, we are taking on some of the responsibilities de facto that should be properly left to that board to deal with out there, because I think here, ultimately, two members of the board here developing a certain sophistication with regard to these matters, even over the period of 5 years, will not enable this board to compensate for some of the shortcomings of the boards that have been there and got us into this situation in the past with the apparent failure on the part of this board to pay attention to the economic issues, the strategies, and so forth. And Kendall Smith and I have paid considerable amount of attention to this stuff over the last couple or 3 years. But the fact is here is I do not feel that the retirement board has shown to this point over these 3 years, has shown a level of responsibility that I think has been entrusted to them. I think here that we should maintain something of a firewall between this, and that was, Supervisor Smith, if I'm correct, I think that was part of the advice we received here with regard to breaking it off. This would allow us a firewall. This would allow us to distance ourselves from what the retirement board is doing. Now, maybe that's not your reading of it when you talk about joint responsibilities. I'm not sure where any of that takes us, and that's why I am very, very concerned about the extent to which this has been expanded as an issue, and a very small sense of response to the publicly expressed concerns that I've been able to witness. And should we jump into somebody else's set of problems? Should we take over? I mean, it's like taking over a house in the middle of the mortgage meltdown. It's like taking over all the places that are bad investments. Would you jump in and say, don't worry, we'll take care of it?
So you've got the Titanic with you like the Lusitania as well. But, you know, I think...
I'm going to interject here and make a few comments when we need to move this forward. I don't support this ad hoc committee for basically, if you look at most ad hoc committees are formed on a specific issue to come back for two members of the board to get really up to speed and advise the rest of the board and make a vote, make an action. If this ad hoc committee was established, they can talk about retirement issues, whether it's investment issues, whether it's losses they've obtained, whether it's administrative service, anything to do with the retirement system, and this board really don't have the ability to make a vote to change the way our retirement system is set up. So there's really there can be no meat and potatoes come out, no result come out of this ad hoc committee. You know, and then I can get into issues, for instance, on number 3 of what they would do, their responsibilities is number 2, review the performance of the pension obligation bonds. There's no performance of the pension obligation bonds. Those are debts. Those are county's debts that the interest and principal payment has to be made every year. And, you know, there's no review. It makes it sound like these bonds are bringing us money in, and so we got to review if they're a good thing. There's no review of a pension obligation bond. It's a debt. It's a simple debt. We make the interest and principal payments. You know, 16 months ago, when the retirement system reported to us that they were making 25%, or $25 million they made, 2 years ago?